Has your child ever been in the middle of a meltdown, or maybe your spouse dealing with sensory overload? And in this situation, you ended up exploding or having a big reaction, and the whole situation went to Chernobyl basically. You look back wishing, what could I have done and what could they have done to bring us down a level? Well, that's what I'm talking about today, a tip for you and a tip for them in these situations. Hey friend, do the daily demands of family life leave you exhausted with no time for yourself? Ready to make self-care and healthy boundaries a natural part of your day, all while embracing your roles as a wife and mom? Well, I'm so glad you're here. I'm Christina, married 16 years to a neurodiverse man, mom of 3 neurodiverse kids, and many more roles. Welcome to the Moms in Neurodiverse Families podcast. Get ready to begin your self-care journey. Grab your Santé latte and listen in as we take a small step towards a healthier you. Why does it seem it's always during the trips or transition times that all of the problems and meltdowns seem to occur in our families? At least that's the way for me. I remember years ago a situation when we were trying to get out the door. I believe we had to be at a family event. I had pressure. My spouse was very upset because he wanted to be there not on time, but early on time, which meant 15 minutes earlier. And I had the frustration and some of even like the anger coming, like, why are we not doing this? And then on the other hand, I had children who were having big reactions and like meltdowns over having to go to this not preferred event, having to wear shoes and clothes that I believe is probably a season change too. So I'm pretty sure we were going from shorts to pants, which when your kids just have sensory issues, that extra material on the legs can make a difference. Anyway, there was all this pressure and all this, like, basically just not fun experience happening in our home. And finally, I came to the point and I blew. It didn't solve anything. I mean, like, yeah, maybe I felt a little bit better in that moment, but it didn't bring down the anger and energy level from where we were at. It brought it up to a whole nother level. The ride in the car was awful. Honestly, it took about a good hour and a half just for everyone to recover once we got to the event. The reason I share this is not that we have to, as the moms and wives, have to be perfect. However, we do have to be aware, we have this extra challenge that our responses will jack up or bring down others, just as we are impacted by our spouses and our kids' reaction. So, what do you do in these situations when emotional intelligence, emotional regularity, co regulation, all those issues that are going on is tricky in a neurodiverse family? So, today I'm sharing a tip that I have used and my family has used in these situations. First, for the kids. I've mentioned this in previous episodes how alone time was something very pivotal that we incorporated after school because they were coming from a situation that was incredibly overwhelming, lots of different rules, and not understanding the social rules and expectations. Alone time was needed. Having time alone before an event or after an event, and sometimes even in the middle of an event, is so crucial. So this is my tip for your kids, is that if you see, and I'll word this a certain way, but I think you'll know what I mean. When you see the rumbling, when you see like your radar's up and you're like, uh-oh, my kiddo is about to go Chernobyl here in a bit. You can see the rumblings happening. It could be the fidgeting with the clothes. It could be certain hand motions. It could be verbal expressions, whatever it is, you know they're agitated and it's about to go to the next level. That is the moment when having time alone can be so crucial because at that moment their amygdala is taking over and the logical part of their brain is not functioning. And oftentimes, and I'm not speaking in psychological language here, there's many different parts of the brain with very specific titles. I'm saying, generally speaking, the logical part of their brain is not at their optimal. And also, anyone who's neurodiverse, they have delays or impacts on sometimes their ability to process these emotional situations. So having time alone with that's no phones, no iPads. Music would be the most that my personal suggestion is the most that would happen. And in that situation, the music, when the child is then listening to the music, the outcome should be a calmer child. If a child is listening to music and they end up being in the same state or worse, then that music is not helping. Does that make sense? Whatever activity they're doing, it should be slightly better or even greatly improved after they do the activity. Because I have seen where one of my children will listen to music for 15, 20 minutes and they are at the same emotional agitation as they were when they started. Well, that music did not help. We would change music lists, and then afterwards, I can see a difference. They are relational, they're wanting to talk, they're interactive. That is my point when it comes to the music. But no screens, no toys that light up. You want to have it a quiet place. And oftentimes we use their room because my kids would run away when they were agitated. So the room was a place that I ended up making into we removed a lot of items from it for a time being. As they got older, they knew like, okay, this is not okay for me to go run away when I'm agitated. Then they went outside and someone would be outside in nature. They would be walking around the backyard or even take a bike ride or take a walk. My point being is that they are alone. They are not communicating with someone else. Their brain is able to like have a reset. That is so important. When you see those warning signs, that rumbling, that you can tell there's a situation. And I bet like the instant the instant it's starting to happen with your kids. Now, for adults, this is something that would be for you and I, but also it can apply for your spouse. That alone time tip, let me just jump back a little bit. That alone time tip also works for us as adults as well. Please don't get me wrong, that works for us. But for kids, that is the simplest thing because you and they are still learning their sensory profile, understanding what works and what doesn't. And by having a simple method like that works. Now, for adults, the topic that I want to introduce is quieting. And quieting is this concept that I believe came from Chris Coursey, and that's Coursey, Chris Coursey. And I will have a link to one of his videos talking about this skill of quieting. Being able to quiet ourselves is so, so crucial. In fact, if I was using my planner, as I mentioned in previous episodes, underneath mind, MIND, underneath mind, I would write down that I would be practicing quieting for like that would be the focus for the month or for the week, is how I would quiet myself. Now, quieting involves removing yourself from a situation. It involves having your mind slowing down. So all the cats that are running around, all those thoughts all the problems you're trying to solve, the goal is to have everything come to a resting place. And how you do this, there's so many different methods, and honestly, I won't do it justice. So I highly suggest Chris Coursey, looking at his information in the video I'm going to share. This is how I do quieting. Is the purpose of it is so that my relational circuits can turn back on and I can turn off all the conflict circuits, that's a term I would use, that are activated, looking for all the problems. And by ways that I do that is oftentimes removing myself from the situation. I am going outside and I am taking an intentional walk, even if it's around the house. If you can't leave your house because of safety concerns, I'm walking around the house and I might even have earbuds in, playing music, and I am specifically looking at things in nature. I'm looking at trees, I'm looking at birds, I am watching God's world and observing and allowing my brain, a different part of my brain, to be activated as the conflict part, the ready for a fight part, is being shut down. Also, one thing I will do is I will get a cup of tea and I will find a place by myself. I will close my eyes and I will take a deep breath and I will breathe in, smell the tea. My eyes will be closed. I will do some deep breathing and I will let just the emotions just like wash away, just get out of me, and get to the point where finally my mind is feeling quiet. And I actually have a couple other tips. I have in my email list, which I have a link in the show notes, a handout which shows all the different things that you can do for a 5-minute self-care reset, basically, which many of them work with quieting, and how we can help our brain to go from attack mode into, okay, I am now feeling more peaceful. I now feel that I have slowed down and quieted myself and I'm able to engage. And that is so important, because if your child takes some time and if you take some time, even if it's in the middle, all of a sudden you find both of you are just rawr at each other. It's like, wait, nope. And you can have a code word, and it's understood because you talked ahead of time that everyone's going to kind of go in their own corners, go different parts of the house, take a break, and whatever time you determine. For kids, I had the basic 10 minutes because it took them a while to really slow down. For adults, it could be the same, it could be less, it all depends. And then come back later to discuss the situation. For your spouse who's neurodiverse, this quieting also can work. However, it can be very difficult because they need to manage themselves. So sometimes it is the removal of yourself and the kids from their surrounding for a short amount of time, and you communicating, we are doing this so you have a chance to find your best self, a chance for you to, one of the other terms I will use is like your energy level. Your energy level is at a point that is of agitation, and it needs to be able to come down a little bit so we can all be together as a community, as a family. So that's another tip, is if your spouse is just not wanting to do it, like they just like, I shouldn't have to, or I don't want to, or maybe they don't see the benefit of it, or maybe they are just so overwhelmed they can't even do it themselves, is removing of people from the situation. And depending upon your relationship and how things are going, it could be turning off the TV and making sure everything is quiet. It's amazing how your brain can reset itself when you put it in the right environment. And that's what we're trying to do here, is basically put ourselves in a good environment so our brains can reset, slow down, and remember who we are. And I love the work of Chris Corsi, Jim Wilder, Marcus Warner. All of them, they have so many great resources on how we can deal with difficult situations and be the person that God meant us to be. So I hope these tips help you out. And real quick recap: 1, kids are doing alone time for 10 minutes, no tech. The only thing would be listening to music, which after they listen to the music, the end result is that they're calmer. 2, for the adults, is quieting themselves, finding activities that help them slow down their thought process. And again, if you go to my show notes and sign up for my email list, I will send you my quick 5-minute reset guide. And then 3, for your spouse, if they're in a situation where they're not able to realize how escalated they are, or they are in sensory overload and they're not aware of it, removing yourself and the kids from the room they're in for 10 minutes can help them oftentimes quiet themselves unknowingly, because they don't have personal interaction around them at that moment. So I hope these tips are helpful, and let me know if you enjoyed this, because I will definitely share more with you. Hey, thank you for joining me today. I pray this episode gave you encouragement to take one small step. If so, please leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts to help other women find this show. By the way, if you're loving this conversation and want more encouragement like this, join my email list at bit.ly/myselfcare. That is bit.ly/myselfcare. I have a planner launching soon that will help you put all this into action in your own life. I look forward to chatting with you again next week for another episode.